Hello, on this Beaver Builder website Stripdown, we have Tara Claeys from designtlc.com, who's shown us around the Grace Episcopal Day School website. Now, apart from the fact that I call her Tara, the British pronunciation all the way through this, and also to explain why I'm asking again about her theme, her header, it was late at night for me. This has to be, I think, one of the best of the Stripdown. She gives us a really great insight to her design process, and also she has a blog post on the making of this website, which really beautifully accompanies this video. So you ought to go and check that one out as well. She's definitely one smart, eloquent, and organized woman. I highly recommend it, and if you think it's going to be of use to others, please share it. And as always, I'll see you on the other side. Hello, Tara, and welcome to a Beaver Builder website Stripdown. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
We were just speaking before this, and I think I knew you a little bit for seeing your name up in the Genesis community.
Yes, I've posted in Genesis groups on various platforms and guest posted on a blog or two. So I love the Genesis community. Super involved. It's helped me grow so much as a business using Genesis.
Yes, it's the same for me. Well,
yeah.
For folks who don't know you, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do?
Sure. I'm Tara Claeys, and I'm based outside of Washington, D.C. in Arlington, Virginia. I have a marketing and advertising background many years ago before the internet, and then left my career in direct mail marketing to be a mom, and was sort of a very cartoony type of artist. And so I started a stationery business when my kids were little, just to give myself something to do and pay for the piano lessons and those kinds of things. Not even that, actually. It was really small. It was just friends, and it grew and grew. And so I was then printing things in my office and had turned it into something of a business. And a few of my stationery clients had businesses of their own, and I had built a website for myself using Microsoft Front Page, if you ever heard of that.
Oh, yes.
And I had just thousands of illustrations on there, and it was not a very complicated site at all, but it had a lot of content. So a couple of my stationery clients wanted websites for their businesses, so I built them for them using Front Page, and then Front Page sort of went away, and I got sick of using paper all the time. So I decided I would stop the stationery business and start a graphic and web design business, and chose WordPress as the thing I wanted to learn, and sort of learned CSS and HTML as part of that process. Not a very straightforward path, and not a best practices way to learn things at all. So I'm sort of always filling in the gaps, but so glad that I chose WordPress to move forward with, because I've been able to develop a much more robust business than I would have working with paper.
Yes. How long ago was it when you started with WordPress?
It was around 2010, I think it was. So I was using the 2010 theme and learning how to make child themes off of that. So it was around that time. I didn't know anything about the WordPress community, though. I had found a guy online who would look at my sites, and when I had a problem, I could message him, and he'd help me figure out the CSS or the HTML to fix what I was having trouble with. And then I found a guy online to help me with some backup type stuff, and he told me he was going to a WordCamp, and I thought, what's a WordCamp? I looked it up, and there happened to be one upcoming near me in Baltimore, Maryland. So I went there, and like so many people that I've met, that was just a really big life changer for me. And that's where I learned about Genesis and just learned about the community in general. And now I've attended many WordCamps, and I'm a big advocate for them.
Yes. Well, I was taking a peep at your blog, actually. I should mention your blog because it's got some great new articles on there.
Thank you.
Yeah, fabulous. Because you've actually, the site we're looking at today, you've actually got a really nice blog post on it as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I have in my website itself.
Yes.
Yeah. So I've written, it's a struggle because my website is what I use to send prospective clients to, but most of the blog posts that I write are really geared toward my peers, toward other web people. I did some blog posts with some website hosting reviews and things like that. But again, those were even really directed toward my colleagues and peers whose blogs I read as well. So we kind of share information. But I did write a couple of blog posts about a recent site that I launched that we're going to talk about today, just because the process was really enjoyable for me from start to finish. And I think it helped result in a website that is really solid and has been well received by the client and their clients, the families that go to their school. So I feel really good about it and wanted to sort of share the process, because I think it's really helpful to not just look at the technology and the functionality that we're using when we build a website, but the process that we're using to get there, because you can waste a lot of time if you haven't spent the time up front figuring out what you need and the best solutions.
Yes. Oh, we all need help with that. Hey, I must say thank you also to David Denis, because he's the one who requested that you come on and show us this site in the Beaver Facebook group. So this one's for you. It might be only for him.
Yeah, so I don't post that often at all in the Beaver Builder Facebook group. And I've been using Beaver Builder for maybe a year and a half, not all that long, but I met Devinder in the Genesis community, and he did some work for me and helped me with some things. And he started using Beaver Builder and just swore by it. And so I kept thinking, maybe I should try it. But I was really wedded to Genesis. And finally, I had him sort of hold my hand through the first Beaver Builder site that I built, and just never really looked back after that. So I participate in the Facebook group, not all that much, but I did with this website. I actually learned some cool code, thanks to you, to build a mega menu. And I wanted to share that because it was really great to not have to use a plugin for a mega menu, and to make it look exactly like I wanted to was not all that hard.
Devinder's a star, and I maybe you were like me as well. Somebody who got used to Genesis and thought, I was never going to be using a page builder. No way.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. I'm already self-conscious enough about the fact that I'm not, formally trained, and I'm sure like we all feel that imposter syndrome of, my code isn't good. I haven't, followed a course from start to finish, and I kind of learned what I need to learn, but have thought often that I used to think that it was cheating to use a page builder, until I realized that I'm doing a better job. My sites are looking better because you can customize each page. And for my clients, it's so much easier for them. So they don't care if I'm, writing a custom child theme in Genesis, or if I'm customizing a theme with Beaver Builder. They don't, as long as it's easier for them. And to be honest, not to put down Genesis, but the whole widget structure of the homepage. How many people have had their clients say, "How do I edit the homepage?" Even if you tell them, 6 or 9 months later, they still are looking for the homepage to go edit. And so it's a lot easier process, I think, for clients and for us.
Yeah, we've moved on. Shall we take a peep at the site that we're looking at today? So Grace Episcopal Day School, isn't it?
Yes. So here's the site. I have it running locally just to try to make it go faster. But I fought them a little bit on a slider because they wanted to have several different images. And I originally started with just the one that you just saw. But I told them I would use 3 or 4 different images for a while and test the performance and see if it had any impact. And I haven't tested it yet, but the site is running really fast. I ran it through Pingdom, and it's under a second to load. So I figure that's pretty good. So I wasn't going to fall on my sword over it. If they wanted to have different messages or something, that I was absolutely not going to do. But as long as it had the same, the same call to action of watching the video. So, and I use a Lightbox for that, a Lightbox plugin, which is really nice because it doesn't take you to a new page. And also, instead of having a background video or something that auto plays, it gives you the option to play it. So.
Yeah, I watched that video. It's really...
Oh, yeah, they have a great video. They have a couple of great videos. Yeah.
Well, I don't know where you want to take us first, because we were just chatting before, and I'm really quite intrigued about the process and how you...
Let's talk about that. So, sort of soup to nuts, when I have a client come on board, they hire me with a contract and a deposit, and then we move forward. And the first thing that I do for a project like this, which is larger, is I use Teamwork. I don't know if anybody uses that, but I know a lot of people use Basecamp or Trello. I use Teamwork. I have another company as well that I have a business partner, and we do larger projects. And so we chose Teamwork as our project management system. So I use it as well for my design TLC projects. And it just allows messaging between the clients to be tracked in one place. You can put your files there and everything. So it's a good way to also have your tasks listed, and keep track of those. So that's where we start. Then we take a content overview. So I use Screaming Frog, or have used that in the past, to pull all of the URLs for a site. But then I also manually go in and look at each page, especially the top level pages, and have a description of what's on the site, and make a note of whether they want to move it to the new site or not. That doesn't get used too thoroughly. As you can see, these didn't all get filled out, but it's just good to have an idea of what was on the site before.
Yes.
And what we may want to move over to the new site, images and links. So we do that. And then I use this Google Doc also to create a timetable. And then I use that to bring into Teamwork once we've agreed on it. The one thing about Teamwork, not to get too in the weeds about project management systems, but if you change one date, it doesn't automatically move all the other dates forward. So if if your final copy, instead of coming in on schedule at 6/26, if you move it 2 weeks forward into July, it's not going to change all these other dates. So it's kind of a hassle. So I try to make this pretty tight before I start entering all the tasks into Teamwork.
Yes.
And then we create a sheet for the new site as well. And this is where we keep track of what we've loaded in, what images we're using on each page so we don't duplicate them. In this case, they hired a photographer, which was awesome. We had hundreds of really great photography, but it got really confusing as we started loading them into the site because the client was changing them, and I didn't want them to be duplicated. So we put them into this Google Sheet, put a description. We're able to load the H1 tags in here. So this is sort of our content overview document. The other great thing about this project that made it really successful was that the client hired a writer. They hired a professional writer who does education types of writing, and who they had worked with before. So she actually went in and interviewed them and got a lot of information about tone and messaging. And she put together a fabulous information architecture document, which I wrote a blog post about this whole process, which is on my website if you wanted to look at it more detailed. But she put together, quite a detailed architecture of each page on the site, of how she was suggesting the navigation and sub-navigation to work. So she did a lot of the work that probably many of us as website developers, designers, implementers do for our clients. She did that for them, and then I participated in the process to make sure that it made sense from a functionality standpoint. So this was really helpful. It made designing the website so much more enjoyable because the client had bought off on all of this, and I knew I wasn't spinning wheels or wasting time. And I made some suggestions about some things, but it really helped a lot. So once we have the information architecture, then we can start with the wireframe. I use something called wireframeapp.io.
Yes.
And this is just a drag and drop, really easy to build wireframing tool, and you can present it to the client like this so they can see it. There's some interactivity with it even. You can hot link things. And what's actually great is you don't want to really show text normally in a wireframe, but this actually is the intro text from the content document. So you get an idea of how much content there is. So you're not wireframing for 3 paragraphs when there's only 2 sentences or something like that. So that's really helpful if you have enough content to do that. So it's a great tool. Wireframe app is a great tool. There are others out there as well. This one, I really like it a lot.
Yes.
So we go through this with the client. They can comment on it. We can make changes to it. Usually things like, the navigation, they may change the name of things or change the order, that type of thing will happen here. And then we go into design, and I use Sketch for my design. And then I sync that with InVision. Okay. So this is also a really smooth process. When you're in Sketch, you just click sync, and whenever you save the document, it will make the changes to the InVision version of the site. So here's InVision, and you can do some hover effects from your Sketch document, so they can get an idea of how things are working, as well as you can do several pages and that type of thing. You can also hot link here. So here's where the idea of the mega menu came in, was here. And then I had to figure out, I've used mega menu plugins before, but I've never used them to this degree. And so, so this is how we use InVision. It's a great tool.
Wow, it is.
With Sketch. We make some tweaks to this as well, and the client can, you can actually present from InVision. You can do a live screen share like you and I are doing here. You can do that, and they can make comments, and they can see your screen, or you can see them doing things on it. So it's a really cool tool to use as well. So once design is approved, then we go and start building it. And I used WP Engine for this site and built it on a temporary domain there, and had an install on WP Engine that could then be transferred to the client. And on this one, I actually, after talking with Devinder a bit, I used the Beaver themer, the new Beaver themer plugin for the header, which was fabulous. And I actually did not use Genesis on this site. So I tried the Beaver Builder child theme, and I really liked it and really enjoyed building my own theme. I like how you can then block off things in the back end for the client, which I hadn't really done before. My clients don't usually go in and play very much with their site, so I've never really been afraid of hiding things from them. But on this one, I did go in and I used a user role plugin, as well as some of the things in Beaver Builder to control what the client had access to.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tara, there's so much there. That should. Can I ask the stupid questions now?
No. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sure they're not stupid. I don't know if what I just went over was really boring, but
no, it's fabulous. And also, I have the same wireframe tool, which I bought, and I have not used it yet.
Did you get it on a deal from the app Sumo? I think I got it for like $30. It was great. It's a lifetime license.
Absolutely. It looked really great. I tested it, of course, on the day, but anyway, sorry, that's not.
No, it's excellent. Yeah.
That wasn't my question. My question really was, it was just about the kind of teamwork you do there. Because do you think that's quite common for copywriters to give you that content architecture? No.
And I've worked with a few different writers. I mean, great writers, and they will provide the content in a Google Doc. But this writer was really exceptional and very thorough. She is just an education writer. That's her topic. So, but I think the experience for me, never having worked with a writer that did anything like that, was just so smooth. I think I find when you're doing the design and the development, to also do the thinking on the information architecture, sometimes it's blocked by just your routine of what you normally put in navigation, or kind of wanting to move through it to the next step. So to have a fresh look at it, and someone who really talked to the client for several hours and walked around the school and got a feel for it and did all of those things that weren't in my budget to do, honestly, it just made for a great collaboration. And she also bounced some design thoughts off of me. And so it was, I loved it. It was great. I would work with her all the time. Her name was Edith Berry. She's based in Maryland.
Yeah, it sounds fabulous. And did you not do any work until she'd done her copywriting and that?
Correct, pretty much. Yeah. So the client hired me in March, I think, and I didn't get started until into May. And I'll also say that the client that I worked with on this project, I had worked with previously. She was at a different school, and I had done a website for them, and we worked really well together. So she brought me on board for this project. So we had a working relationship, which was really great. And as a client, they also were invested in this. So they spent time with the writer and they spent time looking at photographs, and they were really invested in the process as well, which I think not all clients do. I mean, every other blog post that you read talks about how hard it is to get content from your client. And yeah, we all struggle with that. I don't know how many websites I have right now that are, months old sitting because they don't have any content. The client doesn't have time to do it. But in this case, it moved smoothly in large part because they were committed to it.
Yes. Well, that was the question I wanted to ask, really. I mean, how did that work? Did it come with some deadlines that you accepted? And I mean, maybe you can't say what the budget was for this, but in some ways, you are working independently, I guess the copywriter is, so they're charging independently for that.
Yeah, she had her own arrangement with them, and I don't know what that was. And the budget for me was, it was over $5,000, but it wasn't a huge, it wasn't an enormous project. Oh. So the timetable, though, we did all buy in on this. So the writer agreed to the time frame and was a little bit late on it, but I was able to catch up. So it worked out okay. Yeah.
Fabulous. This is how websites should be built, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
that's my point. Exactly. I would like to only have projects like this every time. Yeah, it was great. So do you want me to talk about the back end?
Yes,
or
please.
The front end?
Yeah, well, you can show us the front end and then maybe show us which plugins are doing it. So
I'll talk about the mega menu for a minute because it's thanks to you that I was able to do it. I have used Max Mega Menu and Uber Menu before. Neither of them worked on this site. I tried them first, but because this is Beaver Themer, the header is built with Beaver Themer, it wasn't working because it's, I guess because it's a widget, and those don't work in widgets, or Uber Menu says that it does, but I tried both and I couldn't get it to work the way I wanted it to using this section of Beaver Themer. Most of them, it has to be the primary menu area for it to work. So so I gave up on that and just did a little bit more searching and saw that Beaver Builder has a mega menu class built into it. And so that plus your tutorial on how to make the columns line it up. I got it here.
So you've got a replacement header on the top there, is that correct?
A replacement header.
Is that the themer header?
This is the themer header, yeah.
So
because you'll see if I show you on mobile, I built a whole different version of it for mobile. So it has.
Yeah, that's nice.
It has two, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your instructions were so valuable in coming up with a way to code this, and I just did a little bit more design to it. So in the menu code.
Tara, I'm a demon at stealing other people's code.
Yeah, well, obviously I am too. So it's a little bit of a complicated menu because it has all of these columns, and some of them, and there's no header section for them. And there's an image, right, and a paragraph. So I had to play with it a little bit to get it to work properly. And but here's an example. So there is a hide heading class, which I don't even think is working on my site in most cases because it doesn't work on the sub pages, I believe. Someone contacted me who was using the code that I had put in my original blog post, and I had left out some CSS that I added in order to hide the navigation label on sub items. So thanks to your code, I was able to also add images into the menu, and I think it turned out exactly how I wanted it to.
Yeah, it's fabulous. It's really nice and simple.
Yeah. So something else I did from a design standpoint was I did a little bit of an unorthodox corner border radius on the images, just to give it a little bit more interest, and a hover effect. So if we look.
Now, on the screen that I'm seeing, I'm not quite just seeing all of that. I don't know if it's enlarged. I hope it's recording all, because they may
Can
not
you
see.
see, what are you seeing?
It was just on your unorthodox borders there. I know what they look like, but just on my screen, I was seeing it a little bit too large.
Okay. Can you see me now hovering over
I can.
Okay. So I was just going to show the classes that I used for the overlay. And this is most likely thanks to Devinder, some of this. So using an HTML widget instead of a photo widget.
Yes.
Or a text widget, I find to be easiest. One of the things that I absolutely love about Beaver Builder is the ability to do page specific CSS. Because you actually can cowboy code and it's okay, right? Like we are coding in here right now without having to go into a text editor and upload or use Git or anything like that. So it makes it super fast and easy. I'm embarrassed to show. I did use the important tag a few times, but I was trying really hard not to. And about 3/4 of the way through the process, I gave up a little bit on that.
Well, it's in context, isn't it? I think we've had it drummed into us not to use it,
right?
And I think, but on a single page, I mean, how much is that going to cause you problems, throughout your whole site? And that's really the problem, isn't it? This big override, that you can't find later.
Right, and it's hard. I mean, that's one of the difficulties of working with Beaver Builder, especially until you get more the hang of it, is finding what properties you need to affect to make the change that you want to, because you've got FL content, FL text, all those things that you have to kind of drill down and figure out how specific you need to be. So I love using this. It's for me, it's very intuitive and easy. And then just kind of did some fun effects with color and classes and things like that using CSS with the posts. I had actually, because I'm a Genesis person, I had never actually used the Beaver Builder posts module. I love the Genesis featured posts modules. So for me, it was just a bit of learning to figure out how these work, because it's a little bit different. But it turned out great. And then I use an events manager, the events manager plugin. I use it on a lot of sites.
Which one is that one?
So that one is, who's it by? I know there's a couple of really popular ones. This one it's called Events Manager.
Okay.
And it's by Marcus Sykes.
Oh, okay.
It has a free version and a pro version. The pro version, you can collect money and do bookings, but it also has this WP Full Calendar is an add-on for it, which is free, and it allows you to do a really nice looking calendar on the site. So, and color code it and works really well. So you can see that here.
Yeah, I think I've heard of the plugin, but I've not used it.
Yeah, I use it on another site that has a lot of events, and they have images. So it even does. In this case, it doesn't have an impact, but if you have an image, it will do a light box, a tooltip there. So yeah,
great.
And so let's see. And then I did use the Beaver Themer also for the footer.
Have you used Beaver Themer for any of the content? There's not a custom post type in this site, is there?
Right. No, there isn't. I could have used one for the staff page, which really would have been the only place that it would have been applicable, but they don't have separate pages for all of their staff, only for one person. So it didn't really make sense to go to that effort. So this is just built straightforward with Beaver Builder and image and text modules. So I used a pretty straightforward. This is just CSS. I did use a this is some custom stuff here with a menu on each section of the page. So it's sort of like breadcrumbs, but nicer.
Mm-hmm.
So each section has its own menu, and that's coded into the row. So the row has a class, and that is what that applies to.
I wanted to ask you about something, if I don't take you off
go
in the wrong
ahead.
place. You've also got, I see on the Give tab there, also, yes, so people can give.
So they use third party for these. So this was pretty easy to do because it's just an iframe.
Oh, okay.
So, this is nothing really. Same with the, they're going to be using an application system that's a third party as well. So that currently isn't set up yet, but it will. That's what that will be. Yes.
Fooled me.
I do use, sorry?
It fooled me. I thought, you've been doing some clever work with gravity forms or something.
I do actually have several sites that use gravity forms, and I have gravity forms on this site as well. I also use the Give plugin for a couple of client sites that I have as well, and I love that too. So I told them about that opportunity, but they were already using something called Little Green Light.
Okay.
So any other, nothing really too fancy, just basically some CSS design stuff. I did used their tabs and accordions in some places. So here are some tabs, just design wise, to make it interesting.
Yes.
And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Like I said, I used gravity forms. Yes. Technology wise, I did find this toggle search form module, which is by Chinmoy.
Oh, okay.
And that allows I can't see it as much on the local site, but up here. So that just is saved me from writing some code myself.
Yes, I know that plugin. He does some great stuff, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. And then a user role plugin that I use. It's called WP Front User Role Editor. I have the pro version because I'm starting to put it on all of my sites. Mm-hmm. It allows you to really specify. I don't like to limit too much for my clients because they should have admin privileges, but I can hide some menu things like themes and things like that. And I use the agency version of Beaver Builder, as I know that people have said the name. So I like to brand it. I do that.
Yes, exactly. Yes, I have agency for the same reason, just because I don't want to explain the Beaver.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, they will see it eventually. As long as clients are on my ongoing maintenance, I include them on my pro licenses for Gravity Forms and Beaver Builder and anything else that I'm using that I have a developer license for. But if they ever stop maintenance, then they have to buy their own. So then they'll know.
Yes. And you're not using any of the third-party add-on packs in this at all. Have you used them at all?
I have used a couple. You mean the Beaver Builder Power Pack things?
Yes, and Ultimate add-ons, those two are the main ones, yes.
I haven't so much. I think I have one on my own site. I can't even remember what it does. And then I used one on another site a while ago, but I haven't really delved into that too much or had the need to kind of keep sites simple.
Yes, and also, as you were showing, there's plenty you can do with a little bit of CSS with the existing modules.
Exactly. Yeah. But there are some cool things out there that you can do.
Yes.
If there's a need for it. Yeah. So I did a lot of performance testing on a lot of my sites a few months ago, and so I did do some testing of this. I put auto optimize on my sites often, even though it's running on WP Engine, which automatically makes your site run faster. I'm not sure if auto optimize makes that much difference. When you run it through a Google Insights test, it still doesn't do great. It's a big frustration of mine that Google Page Insights always tells you that your images need optimizing, even if you've optimized them. So I put WP Smush on here. because the client often doesn't remember to save their images for web.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want that to slow the site down. But even after smushing all the images, Google Page Insights still says that images need optimizing in some cases. I don't get it. But
I think sometimes with the Google, I mean, really, it's only giving you points and it doesn't know, and it's not taking any notice of actual speed, is it? It's just looking at the number of files, and I think it tends to, once you reach a certain level of files on one page or something, so you've got a video on which adds a ton more,
right,
then it starts to flag up things you could optimize elsewhere. So perhaps if you didn't have a video on that page, it wouldn't tell you about some other things. So it's quite quirky.
It is, yeah, and you can run it 5 minutes later and get a different score too, right? But
Yes.
but it's a good thing to pay attention to,
Yes.
and I like to do that. So
can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I wanted to ask you about auto optimize, because a lot of people use this, and I've never used it, but I've heard that some people have some issues with it. So I just wondered if you regularly used it, whether you had any tips with Beaver Builder.
I don't use all of the settings on it, so it warns you about some things. So especially with Beaver Builder, it can break some things. So I kind of just do the basics, and you can just easily turn it off if it's not if it breaks something. You can just uncheck the box. So just check after you set it up. But you can put, I've tried also when you do tests and performance tests, it will say, you're above the fold. This is a big Google thing. You're above the fold, content isn't being served, right? So I played with this, but it really didn't make any difference. So
yes, I think some of the issues with this one, if I'm understanding it, I'm not sure, is the problem of it, and I might have the wrong word here, concatenate the different JavaScripts together, and I think that causes an issue with some modules in Beaver Builder.
It might, it hasn't for me so far, so I haven't had any issues with that. I think there was sometimes if you do too much with images, it might have trouble with that, but I haven't had any problem with the JavaScript concatenating.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
It could be those third-party add-ons, maybe.
Yeah. A couple of other things as I'm looking here, just as notes on this project, is that I did recreate their logo as an SVG.
Yes.
And it's a very basic logo, so you'd think you could just use a PNG, but it's such a smaller file size, and looks so crisp. It looks so good. So I use SVG images now a lot, and I use a plugin that allows you to just upload it like a regular image. It's called SGV support.
Yes,
SVG support.
I see this. You're the second person I've spoke to who uses this, and it just I feel guilty.
Well, it's a good thing to learn, and it's not that hard. And actually, on my site, I have. I mean, as I had it up there for a long time, it was annoying, but I have. This is an SVG animated that does a border. I used to have a SVG logo here, but I just changed it recently. So so you can do all kinds of cool things. This is actually HTML in the module. It's not an image loaded through the image library, but most of the time, unless you're using animation, you can just use the SVG plugin. I also did a 301 redirect. Was quite the process on this website, because the old website was built with Cold Fusion, and it was so the page structure was really just messy. I think I have an example of it on here. There were hundreds of URLs that looked, they were geds.org/page.cfm, blah, 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 in addition to having a page title. So we had to do a lot of 301 redirects, and I oftentimes use a plugin for that. But in this case, because there were so many, and I was really trying to keep the plugin number low, I just did a text file and sent it to WP Engine, and they do those for you in the HD Access.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So in an attempt to keep the plugin number pretty low, which I guess 15 is bordering on that, but I added in user switching and the user stuff, so that added on a bit.
Yeah, and it's the resources they use. This seems like a pretty light setup to me.
Yeah, it is. It's a pretty fast site.
Mm.
So I haven't added security to it yet, and I'm debating whether to do that or not, given that it's on WP Engine. But that's possibly something else to do.
Yes, and I believe they restrict what you can add.
They can, yeah. WP Engine's pretty. They're pretty specific about what plugins you can't use.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I quite like that, to be honest, because they are the well-known ones are quite heavy plugins, aren't they? And
That's true. Yeah. I use WordFence on some other sites, but WP Engine doesn't allow that one. So, yeah.
Can I just ask about this? Should have been an earlier question, but just when they were moving over, is it because they knew you that they wanted to move to WordPress, or is that something they decided?
It's because they knew me. Their website that they had. Was right. Where was it? It was not good looking at all, and it was for them to make edits was very difficult. They couldn't do what they needed to do, and so because my client had worked with me before and knew about WordPress, she knew that it was easier. So. Yeah, I can't remember where I had the old screenshot. We passed by it, but it was pretty bad looking. There it is. Yeah. So that's what it was before. And the pages were all, it was very hard to navigate. So it wasn't intuitive at all. So for parents to get to content that they needed, it was very hard to find, and getting to the blog and all of that. So it was much more cleaned up. So they actually do have on this new site, they do have a parent portal, which is only, I don't know if it will open, but it's only accessible with a password. So they didn't want to do membership or anything complicated. They just, because it's nothing proprietary, it's just, the lunch form and some other things like that. So they wanted to keep that behind a password protected section though.
And I mean, how many people are needing to update this site, or do you do this for them?
So they do their own blog posts, and the client that I worked with is really good at that. So they're able to go in and make text edits and things. And this is where Beaver Builder comes in super handy for them to easily do that. They wouldn't do things pretty much beyond that. The adding the hero images, they really have to be well cropped, and there's such nice photos that you don't want to put the wrong size or put something too big. So I've suggested that for anything that they wanted to replace, that they would have me do as part of maintenance. Anything to do with the menu navigation stuff also was probably tricky for them. I did put together, I always do for my clients, a tutorial. So a couple of weeks after launch, I went to their office and met with 3 people and their staff, and gave them all logins and walked them through the process of doing some basic things. Another thing they can easily do is events. So adding events with Events Manager is really easy, and you can code the format. So you can categorize things. They can have a page that just has certain types of images, certain types of events on it. Events Manager is a great, I really like that plugin.
Great. And for the maintenance you're mentioning, is this an ongoing care plan that you have?
Yes.
Where you look after all their software updates, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, I recommend that for all of my clients, as many of us do. So yes, I use Manage WP. I have about 65 websites in there that I update regularly. So I have options for clients like this one who might like to have more than that would like to have some time built in. So an hour of time per month, or a certain number of edits, small edits per month type of thing. So I do offer that on my website. Modeled after many of my peers who I admire greatly.
Yeah, we're all borrowing from each other, aren't we, on this?
Yeah.
Tara, that's fabulous. Is there anything I should have asked you? I know there's loads of stuff I'd like to ask you, but time.
I don't think so. I don't know if I went too quickly, but I really appreciate your having me on and letting me talk about this process. I hope it's helpful for someone that's embarking on a project, or anyone who is looking to start using Beaver Builder for client projects, or even using anything for client projects. The process in general is the same, right? We just want to create something that's well thought through. It makes the process go so much more smoothly if you can get clients' attention from the get-go.
Yes.
Yeah. How many times have you built a site, they've bought off on everything, and then you start designing it, and then you build it on a staging site, and they look at it and change their mind about everything because they're seeing it. They're really thinking about it for the first time because it's actually on the web, right? So it's getting a client who can pay attention before that really helps.
Tara, do you think there's anything, I mean, in some ways I'm adapting to the type of client that comes my way, and the mostly low budget, but I just wondered do you think you have a type of client that you work with, and that's why this might work, this process?
I mean, I seem to have done a number of small schools like this, and other child care type of niches. It's not something I've gone after, but I've been speaking with some people I'm in the Carrie Dill's Genesis, her office hours Slack group. And we've had a lot of discussions there about specializing. And Sarah Dunn, I don't know if you know her, but she's a Genesis developer, and she's been doing a video blog about trying to specialize and figuring out what to specialize in. And I've really fought the concept because I like to have the variety of different things to work on, but there really is something to be said for having a niche of something that you know how to do well. So I don't know, this is sort of organic that this has come about. I would love to do more, but it really is a type of client. I mean, this could be a health club or anything else, as long as the client is on board with putting in the resources and the time to make it work well, I think it will be successful. So that's really important.
Yes.
Really important aspect. Yeah.
So. That's how I think that's how projects should run, the way that you've just described, and I think it's fantastic. But it did strike me when I was looking at it, I thought, maybe folks who run a school here will know how to be organized like that. They will plan things. They're used to planning things. And I think, they
might. I mean, so much of it is that this isn't anybody's first job in their business. It's part of their job, and they have other things, especially if they're a small business. They are trying to run their business, so it's hard for them to focus on this type of thing. But it really makes the process not only go smoother but faster. So this really came in exactly on target for launch. It came in right where I estimated that it would in terms of the number of hours that it took me. And so if this were a model, it would be great to do a bunch of these a year. It was really a delight. So
yeah, absolutely.
Nice to share that with you.
Thank you so much. Actually, did you mention how many hours it took? I don't think you did.
I don't think I did. So off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember. I think I had budgeted about 50 hours for development. And I think it came in right around there. I think it was around 50 hours that I spent on development, and maybe 30 or so. Here it is. Let's see. So 65 hours total. And that's assuming that I timed every minute, which I'm sure you could probably add 10 hours on there, because there are probably lots of times I didn't turn on the timer, but in any case, let's say 70 hours total. Yeah.
Great. Tara, this has been fabulous. I think we're coming to the end.
Great.
So much stuff I'd love to have asked you about, just the process, because there's so many questions come off that. But maybe people will put some comments when we post this. But
that would be fine. And you can reach me on my website, and the process is outlined there. There's a PDF that you can download where I describe all the steps that I talked about today as well. So
that's great stuff. Yeah. Was there anything as the project ended that you'd look back and you say, I wish I'd done that differently? Or
I was so organized at the beginning, and I have some onboarding forms on my website where I have clients fill out their credentials and different information that I then file away. So I had them do all of that. And then when it came time to launch the site, I'd totally forgotten that they had given me Google Analytics access and a bunch of other things that I asked them for again. So, you know, being so organized that I actually forget how organized I was. It's probably good now to remember that, oh, yes, I have that. So, yeah, but no, otherwise everything went great.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that is the issue, actually, when to ask people for stuff or when to tell people about stuff. I think this will be a never-ending pursuit, will it, to get that nailed?
Yeah, thankfully the client remembered that she had given me Google Analytics access.
Good.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to try and do one of my slick endings where I say it's goodbye from me, David Waumsley at davidwaumsley.com, and you are
Tara Claeys, Design TLC.
Yes, that was slick. Okay, thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.